So the topic is it's an interesting one, right? It's on suffering. And we've heard so many teachings about suffering, haven't we? And there are so many teachings that will point to an aspect about it that's true. So I'm kind of curious which way I'm going to go today with it. Probably touch on a lot of different aspects of it because to me, we are so vast that it can't just be one thing. That suffering is an illusion, and a lot of the transcendent kind of teachings that have truth to them too. So most of us become involved with spirituality because of suffering to some degree. Would you agree? Struggle, suffering, sorrow. And we want to find a way out. That seems pretty normal, pretty human. And we spend many years trying to find a way out, don't we? And usually through ways that usually tighten the knot. Relationships and sex, food, chocolate, um, alcohol, whatever it is, right? Media. Who here hasn't been guilty of any of that? It's just the human condition, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. And then we hear about spirituality and that there is maybe a way out of suffering, out of feeling the intensity and the tsunami of what suffering, how it affects us in our lives. And we think, oh, that's the way. I'll find a spiritual solution, right? Isn't that what we do often? And then we get so many mixed teachings along the way. And some of them may be appropriate for a while. It's like, you're not your suffering, you're not the sufferer. And that can be very liberating. Who here has experienced that kind of understanding that essentially there's no core part of you that is a sufferer? Please raise your hand. I'd love to know. Yeah. And that's really an important teaching. Would you agree? There's a time and place to really dive into the transcendent teachings. But it doesn't help solve a lot of the details of our lives, the very human part. It doesn't make it go away. So at some point, we have to re-enter experience. We have to re-enter our bodies, re-enter the human condition. And can we do so without getting lost? Right? Can we do so without using spirituality as a coping strategy to try to protect and create a buffer of something that we're afraid of, which is the intimacy of feeling deeply? So it's actually a spiritual evolution to go more deeply into the human experience without fear of getting lost there. which means letting go of resisting sorrow, resisting struggle. What happens when we let go? Something opens up and relaxes, right? It's kind of like, what is that Chinese, that Chinese finger thing, right? You put your finger on each end and you keep struggling, you're just caught, and you relax, and it's just naturally there's an unwinding that happens and you're free. And it's a different kind of freedom than transcending. Yeah. It's freedom within experience. You understand what I'm saying? So the transcendent experience of being free is like the first taste of freedom. To know yourself as spirit, to know yourself as that which is free of. But how can you live your life like that? Someone dear to you passes away suddenly. What are you going to do? Maintain a transcendent, kind of removed kind of relationship to the experience? Is that being free? Or is that at that point becoming a coping strategy? Right? The suffering of the world. Do you want to stay feeling separate from it? Or would you like to feel the connection to humanity and to all creatures and to the earth itself? It takes a lot of courage to come down from the mountaintop and re-enter life. It's like Dogen, the Zen patriarch said, it's an intimacy with all things. So becoming deeply, deeply, penetratingly intimate with experience. That's how free we can be. And it's almost like your skin is being taken off of you, your protective layers. The more that we become awake, and the awakeness penetrates and sinks into our bones, into the marrow, into our cells, the more that we're going to be feeling acutely one another, because we are one another, right? And we're one another on the good days, and we're one another on the bad days. We're one another in joy and in sorrow. We're one another. That's what oneness means. So, how not to get lost there? That's really the spiritual gift that comes out of spirituality, is to be within an experience and to not feel caught at the same time. So, what doesn't feel caught? It isn't something that's avoiding. It's not like holding a last card of protection, of not feeling caught. Is that you are so surrendered on every level that there's nothing to be caught. And it has to do, a lot of it has to do with definition, our personal definition of what feelings and sensations, what they mean. So feeling like a tightness or contraction inside, we have definitions about that, don't we? That it feels uncomfortable, so we have a definition that it's bad. There's something wrong. That's where we go, right? There's something wrong. So a lot of this has to do with our interpretation of an experience. We've heard so many different kind of slogans about suffering. And maybe at different times, something is real and true for one to explore and discover. Like pain is part of being human and suffering is optional. Have you heard that one? Something about suffering being optional. It's just one has to be very careful with taking these things in because we so easily make ourselves wrong for having a certain experience, don't we? And then we go into interpretation of it means I'm not as evolved as I thought. So tease out words and break them down and see for yourself what a word means for you. What does suffering mean to you?